Right, so today I want to make a video on this story out of SpencerFernando.com. He's got his own kind of news company, and I just seen this. Now I've seen this at a couple other places too, but I want to just use this article because it's a pretty good one. But this is a pretty crazy story in that the Canada Pension Plan. Uh, Basically, I'll just read the title. While Trudeau government eliminates Canadian coal industry, federal agency invests $101 million into China's coal industry. Now that just came up here. Just give me a second. Yeah, so it's more and more hypocrisy and more, I would say, evidence against the climate alarmists. So let's read a little bit here, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. But the Trudeau government has arrogantly and repeatedly celebrated their deliberate destruction of the Canadian coal industry. The destruction of a historic Canadian industry has put thousands out of work, weakened our energy security, and caused significant damage in communities that were based in the coal industry. Yet, under the Trudeau government, it turns out the Canadian Pension Plan Board, a federal agency controlled by the Trudeau government, invested $141 million in the Chinese coal industry. And like I say, this is just hypocrisy beyond belief by the government that's pushing climate alarmism and all this stuff. And the one thing I can't stand is that namely in Alberta, you have all these people that you'll have the two groups of people. You got the pro oil and the anti oil, and the anti oil people, their argument is always, well, we need to diversify, and renewables are the future. Well, if renewables are the future, why are we investing in the Chinese coal industry? Well, it's very simple. The Chinese coal industry is going to make money, and it's gonna pay off. Like, they're going to make money off that investment. And the typical leftists, they speak out of both sides of their mouth, namely, two-faced Trudeau and all this kind of stuff. Now, I don't think it's Trudeau doing this directly, but it's still a federal, the CPP is a federally run thing. So yeah, it's a pretty crazy thing. And like the sayings go, is that if you're not willing to put your money where your mouth is, well, that doesn't really mean anything. And that's kind of one of my beliefs on this kind of stuff. So yeah, like I say, this is the main point being is that the climate change people really need to get their heads on straight, because like I say, though, on the one hand, they'll say, well, Alberta, and they need to, invest in diversifying and then get off just oil and coal and all these more, quote unquote, dirty or unclean or environmentally friendly, whatever you want to call it. There's millions of sayings out there for them, but yeah, like, it's just not true. Like, there's not a whole lot of evidence that climate change is a thing to begin with. And even if it is, we shouldn't be spending anything worried about our own output, because the overwhelming majority of the Earth's emissions are from China and India. And if we actually cared about it, we would spend all our time and effort trying to convince China and India to cut their emissions. Canada's less than 1%, and CO2 is a very small percentage of the Earth's atmosphere to begin with. And even if we do cut it, we're not going to be able to cut it all out. We're going to be able to cut maybe 10%. So yeah, like I say, if climate alarmists actually believed what they claim to believe in, like I've said this a million times, but I have to keep saying it because people don't seem to understand, is that if they actually cared, they would spend all their time and effort worried about China and India. They wouldn't spend 1 minute worried about Canada, and to a lesser degree the States. But yeah, this is just another these stories like this that completely contradict major beliefs held by the left. And I mean, a lot of people even on the right believe this kind of stuff. But it's such a stupid thing. And the one thing that the other thing they'll say about their climate alarmism is that, oh well, if the economy has to suffer a little, then so be it. But yet they don't believe that when it comes to stuff like this. So yeah, it's just hypocrisy beyond belief nowadays with the left and with the climate alarmists and with all these people. And like I say, if they actually believed what they believe, they'd put their money where their mouth was, and they would invest in renewables. They wouldn't invest in this. So yeah, but the CPP knows that they would lose money if they invested in renewables, because I was reading a story the other day, and I think it's pretty much every major solar company in the states if you look back, I don't know how many years ago. Let's just say 10. I don't know what the exact year was when they first started this. They found out that about 10 years later, every single major one of them had gone bankrupt. Every one of them, and it's just how bad renewables are. The problem with solar is that it's, I mean, in a lot of the northern areas, like namely, Edmonton and in Alberta, because we're talking about Alberta, it's not a very sunny place. I mean, Calgary's a little sunnier. The south is windier, but the problem with wind turbines is that, number one, like I say, it's not always windy, and they kill a lot of birds. And, the environmentalists don't seem to care about all the birds that get killed from the wind turbines. So that's kind of the thing too, is we know that coal and oil and all this kind of stuff isn't nearly as bad as what they claim it to be. The future is in coal and oil and all this kind of stuff. Now, the only way it's not going to be is if it's literally forced upon us. But China, India, the Middle East, they're not going to go along with it. So when they're referring to renewables or the future, at best they're referring to Canada or the States. They're not referring to the rest of the world, because the rest of the world cares more about money and how much it's going to cost, because renewables are a lot more expensive. Coal is dirt cheap, at least compared to solar and wind and whatnot. Natural gas is decent as well, but yeah, like this kind of stuff, I guess, just needs to be stopped, and people need to be educated. And like I say, one of the easiest ways in debate is to win a debate, to point out obvious contradictions or logical fallacies in people's arguments. If you believe in climate change, you can't turn around and invest in a coal industry. On the other hand, that's the textbook definition of a contradiction. So yeah, I don't want to talk too much more about this issue. I think the title kind of speaks for itself. And like I say too, is that if the government actually believed in climate change and it being this big issue, they wouldn't even have considered this, let alone done it. So, like I said, this is just another of the, seems like, thousands of examples that contradict the climate alarmist narratives, and I would say to disprove their arguments, because the burden of proof is on them, not the other way around. And so yeah, I'm gonna leave the video. I'm gonna leave it here. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.